My name is Michael Sampson. Well, I've been an athlete my entire life. In the last 10 years, I've had four prior knee surgeries, just cleaning out the cartilage, torn cartilage. I had a torn ACL that I never had repaired 30 years ago. And I usually fought through the pain. And I was a school teacher, I was a athletic director and a coach. And so I'm on the field all the time with a bunch of young kids that didn't want them to see the effects of 50 years of being an athlete, the toll that it took on my knees. It just happened after when I retired 3 years ago from teaching school. Most of my life was around golf, and then I started competing in the Highland Games, the Scottish Highland Games, throwing the heavy weights around. And when the pandemic hit, they pretty much canceled all the games. And so the knees at that point in time had gotten so bad that I couldn't walk up and down stairs. Sometimes on the golf course, walking up and down hills got to be too much for me. And I'd been told 5 years previously that I was bone on bone in both knees, was going to eventually need to have the knees replaced. And so I just kept trying to postpone it. I didn't think I could do the Highland Games anymore with the new knees. We'd gone on a cruise and I couldn't use the stairs. Sometimes it would, bother me at night. I would just wake up throbbing sometimes, and I was eating ibuprofen like they were M&Ms, and I knew that wasn't good for me. After the pandemic, and my wife and I had talked over, so I just got to do something. And I'd talked to one of my closest friends that had his knee replaced a few years before, and just said it was the best thing he ever did. And so I decided that's the way I wanted to go. I just had to get it done. I just started looking into replacements. I just started doing background research on all of them and found Dr. Gallant. Before I even met the man, I just realized this is a special kind of a man. Take your family to Africa for how many years he did and to help over there. And I thought that's a pretty special guy. So I really wanted to meet him. Before I'd made up my mind I was going to have him, I went in and he met all my expectations. I mean, there was not one bad thing I could find anywhere. Any reviews, I went to at least 10 different sites that reviewed doctors and surgeons, and he had nothing but 5 stars. And I thought, this is a good guy. It was just what I was hoping for. I mean, he was a guy who was straight up front. We went over the x-rays. He just laid it all out for me, and it was straight up front. This is what it was going to take. And his staff is the best staff. I mean, I've had 9 broken bones. I've had, all these surgeries. But his office had the nicest staff of any office. And I was really impressed with that, too. The fact that they were all so upbeat, so friendly. It really made me feel at home. I felt like I was part of that family. And it really impressed me. I said, let's do it. I wasn't really scared about the surgery. I was a little hesitant about the outcome, what it was going to be like when I got done. Once we got everything settled, I went in to his operating room in Gilbert. I barely remember even going back to the operating room, but I woke up in the recovery room, and he was the first person I saw. But I walked out of the operating room, out of the recovery room. We wheeled me out to the front, and I walked to my car. I pulled the car up, and I took 4 or 5 steps. They had me walk around the recovery room a little bit beforehand too. It was just a great experience. I mean, I used a walker for 2 days, and then I used a cane for the next week. And after a week I was walking, it ended up being a lot faster recovery than I thought. I mean, I started swinging a golf club in the backyard about 2.5 weeks into the recovery process, and by the 3rd week, I knew I was able to. On the 4th week, I went out and played with my regular Wednesday golf group, and I did the rehab. I actually had a physical therapist come to the house. The progress it was pretty linear as far as my recovery went. It was great. 3 months later, I went in and had the other knee done because it was such a great, it was actually the more painful of the two, but the other one was in a lot worse shape. So I did that one first. I did the right one 3 months later, and in that one, the next day, I already had 110 degrees of bend. The day after the surgery, my wife and I got home from a cruise yesterday. We'd done 2 other cruises in this past year, and this one was great. I very seldom used an elevator. I was up and down stairs, and I would say it's the first time in 5 years, 6 years that I've been able to walk up and down stairs without any pain. I can't tell you the last time I even took an ibuprofen for anything in my knee. On both of these knees, I was playing golf within a month after both surgeries. I don't know if it's a residual from the knees feeling so much better, but I'm hitting the ball 20 yards longer than I did before the knee surgeries. In fact, this week, I'm going to start walking the courses. Use a pull cart instead of using a golf cart all the time. My wife and I are back to hiking. People that have asked me about it, who's your doctor? And I've recommended Dr. Gallant is just an amazing guy. And the outcomes that I've had, I couldn't have hoped for better.